Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made for Mixed Media Mayhem. For this layout, we had to use 3 different items. We had to use a stencil, we had to use bling, and then we also had to use either a cut file or a die cut. For quite a while, I have seen scrapbook layouts on Pinterest with dark, even black backgrounds, and I wanted to give this a try. This background was very easy to make. The footage of the background that I made for the layout in this video, it was absolutely unusable, but I wanted to show you just how easy it was to make the background, and I'm sure I'll use this background in another layout. So I took a piece of 120-pound thick white cardstock and I covered it with some Finnabair heavy gesso in black. And then I also use an iridescent paint. It is called US Art Supply. That's the name of the manufacturer. And the color is Wild Purple. It's a bluish purple rather than a reddish purple. And I brushed that in there with the gesso, and I was really happy with the results. It was mainly a black background, but you could see hints of purple in the background as well. I'm using one of my favorite stencils. This is a 6x6 inch stencil by the Crafters Workshop. It's called Mini Tile Mania. I haven't used it lately, but I do really love this stencil. I use it with some Liquitex modeling paste, and I just put a large area on the left and a smaller area on the lower right. And now I'm using my palette knife and I'm just taking a little bit of the modeling paste away just to make the edge of the area with the stencil an irregular shape. Now I'm using some watered down white acrylic paint and adding some splatters to the background. And the splatters go everywhere, but I am mainly trying to concentrate them around the edge of the areas that I've stenciled. I wanted to add a little something more to the background, so I thought that I would add some more splatters. I'm adding splatters in 2 different colors, and these are, again, those iridescent paints that were made by US Art Supply, and I got these from Amazon. The green color is called Ivy Green, and the orange color is called Blaze Red, even though it looks more orange than red to me. And I had to add a good amount of water to get these paints to the consistency where they would splatter. So I splattered those 2 colors around the page, and while I was letting them dry, I thought that I would emboss some leaves. I'm using some leaves that were made by P13. On the packaging, it said they were called light chipboard, and I thought that these leaves would be the perfect size for my layout. I'm going to be making a Halloween layout. I've been using some photos that I had taken of my daughters in Salem, Massachusetts, and we go to this place called Witch Pix, and the kids dress up like witches, and we have a lot of fun. We do that every year. So the photos come out really nice, and they're just perfect for a scrapbooker to scrapbook at Halloween time. I used 2 different colors of embossing powder. First, I put down 2 layers of a Recollections embossing powder called Emerald. Then I used a Ranger embossing pen and I drew some lines on the leaves, and then I went in with a lighter color embossing powder. That was a Ranger embossing powder called Lime Tinsel. I also wanted to use a chipboard frame on my layout. I got this frame from Spellbinders. It's a brand called Fun Stamper's Journey. I got it during one of their warehouse sales. It was only $1, and I absolutely love these frames. I bought a couple of them, but I kind of wish I bought a few more. I covered the frame at first with some Recollections embossing powder in a color called Orange Sparkle, but that color wasn't exactly what I was looking for. It had kind of a pinkish or a reddish tone to it, so I decided to emboss over that again. The second time I used another Recollections embossing powder. This one was one with a pearl finish, and it's called Cornelian, and I thought that this color was a little bit more what I had in mind for this layout. Since this is a Halloween themed layout, I picked out a number of papers from my Halloween scrap envelope, and I use my scissors and distress the edges. I'm going to use these behind the photo. I layered up the orange and the green paper, and I didn't have too many papers or scraps anyway that were the correct purple color. I really wanted a traditional Halloween purple, but I did find a small strip and I cut it in two, and as you can see here, I'm putting those purple strips on either side of the photo. After I attached those papers that I had distressed earlier, I thought I probably could use a few more pattern papers behind the photo. So here's another piece of paper, and these papers are all different brands. One is a Creative Memories paper from a really long time ago. Another one is a Graphic 45. I think it's an 8x8 inch paper, and then, like I said, a whole bunch of scraps that I have from other projects. I put all my Halloween scraps in one place because I do use a lot of scraps and I do make a lot of Halloween layouts, so it definitely comes in handy. Even though I distressed the edges of all the papers, I wanted them to look a little bit more distressed, so now I'm folding and tearing those layers of paper. In some cases, I use my scissors to help me separate the layers of paper since they're fairly close to each other on this layout. And then I felt that I needed to add just a little bit more paper on the right-hand side of the photo, so I cut out a piece of paper and I'm adding another layer of the green pattern paper that I used earlier. And then at the last minute, I decided that instead of adding it to one side of the photo cluster, I would put a small piece on the top and a small piece on the bottom. And then I felt that the photo was finally correctly matted with pattern papers. Sometimes I get a little carried away with adding papers behind a photo. I feel like I want the papers to look balanced, and sometimes it takes me a number of layers to get that balance. So I wanted to use that frame kind of as a decorative piece, but I wasn't expecting to cut it into pieces. But then once I put that photo with all of the matting on the layout, that frame just looks so small, and I just didn't like that idea anymore. So I decided to cut it into 4 pieces, and I'm going to use all 4 pieces as decorative chipboard on all 4 sides of the photo. Before I attach my photo down to the layout, I was thinking that it would look good if I gave it a little bit of extra dimension. On this layout, I'm using some packaging from Chipboard, the chipboard that's left over once you punch out all of the pieces, all the printed pieces. I cut the chipboard to size, and I'm doing a little bit of piecing together, and I use some heavy gel medium in order to attach the chipboard down to the photo. There is some adhesive on the chipboard, or on one side of it anyway, but I don't tend to trust chipboard adhesive, so I thought that a little bit of extra glue would be a good idea, and I love using the heavy gel medium. I think it's really good for a lot of different purposes, and it's perfect to use as just a regular glue. And then I also brush the gel medium onto the 4 pieces of chipboard, and then I carefully place them on the layout. When the gel medium is wet, it looks white, but once it dries, it's clear, so some of the areas that have a little bit of white on them don't concern me because I know that's going to go away. I wanted to add some dimensional flowers to the layout. I'm using the traditional Halloween colors. I'm using orange and purple and black for the flowers. I'm going through my stash and looking for any flowers that I could find that fit this color scheme. It would be much easier to go through my flowers if I had them organized correctly. The flowers in my scrap room are the last thing that I have to organize, and I just am unsure what I should do with them. That was supposed to be one of my summer projects, to organize my flowers, and I never got to that. It's just too overwhelming. I have quite a few packs of flowers now, and I'm not really sure where I'm going to put them, so I have procrastinated doing that, and as a result, it takes me a lot longer to find what I need when I go to make a layout with flowers. So despite my disorganization, I did find purple, orange, and black flowers that I wanted to use. A few moments ago, I put some jewel scrolls on the layout. Those are made by Prima. They're called Say It in Crystals. Several years ago, I started noticing that those crystal scrolls were not as readily available, so I hoarded a whole bunch of them. I really love them. I wanted to add a scroll to this layout that I thought would kind of blend in with the background. I still wanted the jewels and the pearls to be visible, but I didn't want to introduce a new color since I have such bright colors going on with the flowers. So I thought that it would be best to cut that scroll into smaller pieces, and I put it in 3 different places on the layout. I'm going to remove one of those pieces in a little while, but I end up putting a different one in as the layout develops. I found that in the lower right-hand corner, things were just getting too congested, so I ended up moving the crystals, and you'll see that in a little while. Now I'm ready to attach down the flowers, and in order to do that, I once again use the heavy gel medium. I use the gel medium with the matte finish. It's also available in a gloss finish, but when I want to attach things down to my page, I use the matte finish. I wanted to add another element to the flower clusters. I decided to use a pick that I bought from Joann. It's to the left of the layout. When I was shopping there, I noticed that they had these Halloween picks that had some plastic branches in them, and I thought that they would be perfect for Halloween layouts. They're very flat, which I like. Don't mind adding a little bit of dimension to my pages, but I don't want to overdo it. And now I'm playing around a little bit with the orange flowers on the layout. I decided that I would layer some of them up a little bit. And then for centers for the orange flowers, I found these very tiny 49 and Market flowers, so I thought that I would use the small flowers as centers for the larger flowers. So I'm doing a lot of layering. I also wasn't sure about the light orange flower that I have on the bottom right-hand side, so I decided to use some of that same iridescent paint that I use on the background and put a layer of paint over that flower. I think that it helps to bring it a little bit closer to the color palette that I wanted to have on the layout. For the orange flowers, I do a lot of layering. For the purple flowers, I was thinking that I needed to add something to the center of those two. So I started digging through my stash, and I noticed that I had some loose iridescent pearls, and luckily I had a few that were purple, so I decided to add those as centers to the purple flowers. And then I also added an orange pearl to the center of the black flower on the upper left. So now I'm trying something that I have never done before. I often see scrapbookers adding glitter to their mixed media background, so I wanted to try it. Years ago, I was shopping in Tuesday Morning, and they had a whole bunch of colors of Tim Holtz Distress Glitter. So I purchased a lot of it, and I totally forgot that I had it, and I came across it recently, and I thought that it would look nice on Halloween layouts. So I picked out a color Spice Marmalade. I used the heavy gel medium again, and I put some of it down on the layout, then I sprinkled the glitter on top of it. It was surprisingly not messy because I was using such small amounts. So I think the next time that I apply glitter like this, I think that I will, instead of making little dots of the glue, I think that I will make longer brush strokes of the glue or the gel medium and then sprinkle the glitter on top. I'm going to have to play around with it a little bit because, like I said, it's something new. I haven't done it before. Now I'm adding some sequins to the background. I wanted to really try a whole bunch of things. I don't often add sequins to my mixed media layouts. I probably should do it more often. I really love the way sequins look. I had a pack of sequins that I had put in with my Halloween stash because I thought it was perfect. It had a really beautiful color of purple, and then it also had a bunch of clear stars and clear jewels, and I just thought it looked very perfect for my October layouts. So I used glossy accents, and I attached a number of sequins around the clusters. As I mentioned earlier, I removed one of the jewel scrolls from the lower right hand corner, and then I just picked a different piece of one of those scrolls and I put that back in the lower right hand corner, and I think that that smaller piece looks better. The title of this layout is It's Magic, and I used an Elizabeth Craft Designs die, or more than one die, to make that title. I cut each of those two different pieces of the title out of thick white cardstock 3 times, and then I glued them on top of each other just to create a little bit of dimension. And then I didn't include the footage, but I did a whole bunch of embossing on that title, and I didn't like any of it, so I ended up just covering the whole thing with some white gesso. The embossing powder did end up adding a little bit of texture to the title. I added a few pearls to the centers of some of the flowers, and now I'm adding some more stenciling. I'm not 100% sure that I absolutely love this part or think that it was absolutely necessary. I really thought that it was when I added it. I had covered up so much of the stenciling. I thought that I should add a little bit more. So you'll see that this area gets smaller and smaller, especially on the top part of the layout. I don't think that it ruined the layout. I'm not sure if I would do it again, but in the end, like I said, there's not a whole lot of it visible, so I'm okay with it. I think sometimes you have to just try things out. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they might not be your favorite, but there's usually ways that you can fix. I'd say 90% of things that I've done that I don't like, I've been able to fix them. But I decided in this case that I was going to leave some of that stenciling visible. I didn't dislike it, but I just wasn't sure how I felt about it. So I used some black gesso and I covered it up in some areas just to make it a little bit smaller and not as impactful. So to add the gesso, I'm using a dry brush and I'm just dabbing a little bit on the areas that I want to cover up. So that the new stenciling would go along with the old stenciling, I am adding some white splatters to them. And now I'm adding some glue to the back of the title, and I'm going to attach that in the upper right-hand corner. And then I wanted to bring a few of the elements from the other clusters to the title, so I include 2 of those chipboard leaves and then an orange and a purple flower, just very tiny ones. And now you could see I'm trying out so many new things. I've had these glass beads in my stash for so long, and I guess I've used them before. The container was open, but I don't have any recollection of using them on another project. So I use my brush and I brush these glass beads, which I believe are mixed with some kind of gel medium, onto the flowers that are on the layout. And I might not have put enough on to make a big impact, so I don't see too many of the glass beads, but if you look carefully, you can see some glass beads, and then it also added a layer of shininess that I really liked on this particular layout. The centers of some of the 49 and Market flowers that I used were brown and they were kind of rustic looking, and I didn't really like that. So I just let it go for a while, and then finally I said, let me just switch these out. It'll just take a few minutes. So I just clipped them off, and then I added a black sparkly jewel to the centers of all of those flowers. And now I'm adding a few splatters of the green iridescent paint. Again, I want the new areas to match in with the old areas. It's a very subtle touch because the paint is rather watered down, but I thought that it was worth trying out. I added a star to the upper right-hand corner, and then I didn't like where it was, so I moved it down toward the title. And then my messy desk was really starting to get to me, so I cleaned it up. I added 2 more jewels to 2 of the flowers, and that completes this layout. Here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for watching my video for this week's Mixed Media Mayhem. I really love making these layouts. I hope that you enjoyed watching. Please take a look in the description box. There are links to the channels of all the other scrapbookers who take part in Mixed Media Mayhem, and please check out their videos. I can't wait to check them out myself. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day. I will see you very soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.